Welcome, welcome.
Hey, Becky, what's happening?
Well, I'll tell you what's happening. As ZZ Top would say, we have a sharp-dressed man in the house today. Kim Nyoni. We are heading to lovely Las Vegas. We are going to the desert. And we are so delighted to have Kim join us today. He's the Associate Vice President for Development at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And not only is he a seasoned professional and someone who has worked with top-ranked research universities across the country, I'm going to name drop just a couple, University of California, Berkeley, Washington University, Utah State University, University of Arizona, and my parents' alma mater, University of Missouri. He is a good human, and we are just so excited to have his expertise on today. We're going to be discussing all things higher ed. What does higher ed philanthropy look like going into 2021 as we're looking at trends? He has a brilliant and exciting story that he's going to tell about the diversity and inclusiveness advancement pledge, which we are so excited to dive into and lift up. And really, he's just a great person, and we're so excited to have someone with your background and acumen here. So Kim, welcome to the show. We're so delighted you're here.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be with you all. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you.
Oh, absolutely. Give our listeners just a little bit of background into your story and how you fell into development.
Yes, so like most people in this profession who are being honest, I fell into this career by total accident. I was a graduate student at the University of Nebraska, Lincoln, working in the athletic department. And one of my mentors was the senior woman administrator, the late Dr. Barbara Hibner. And so she kind of met me at first and was one of those inspirational people that like to inspire people to pursue their dreams, what areas that they've been blessed with strengths. And so she said, Kim, I really think you ought to think about working in development. I don't want to go become an athletic director. You want to go do all these things. You should consider working in development. I said, what is that? I mean, because, I'm thinking marketing. I'm thinking all these big things. I said, well, how I built the women's athletic program here? Back in the days, there wasn't any funding for women's sports. So I asked the university to give me a building that I'll house the women's programs. And I just went and talked to people and told them my vision, and they gave me money and they get tax benefits. I said, oh, that's what you do. You go to parties and, you host people and you have fun. I'm in for that. And so literally that's how I found out about the field of development. And it wasn't until I finished my graduate assistantship, moved to California, and I had an opportunity to work at the University of California at Berkeley. And so that was my foundation of the career that I've had for all these years. And one of the things that I'm really grateful for is, UC Berkeley and Berkeley in general is one of those all hands-on communities. It's a very rich academic culture, but it didn't matter whether you're a vice chancellor or you're an assistant director. We're all equal. We all work together for the greater good. And so it really instilled in me the foundation of people matter, people first. You treat people well, results will happen. And so I've embodied that throughout the rest of my career. And that's why I've always been the kind of leader that wants to ensure that my team is successful in accomplishing their individual dreams as well as organizational goals. And so, it's been an interesting career, as you alluded to. I've worked for a number of different organizations, and I'd be fortunate that those universities have trusted me to be one of its ambassadors and to secure gifts that have really transformed those institutions. So it's a fun career. And every time I wake up in the morning and I have any challenge, I say, just think about it. It's all about the students and the outcomes that we're providing for them. So whatever bureaucratic thing I'm dealing with is irrelevant. Let's just focus on the big picture. And I challenge everybody to do the same, because our mission is all about that.
Kim, you're such a good guy. And I love that that's how you power through the bureaucracies. We all need to find
I love that he
North
addressed
Star.
the elephant in the room, because it's like higher ed may be the land of milk and honey typically in the fundraising world, but there is a lot to wade through. So good for you for finding hack to rise above it.
And I was going to say, good on your mentor too, because I think showing you the impact of philanthropy, that's what sucked us into. And Becky and I met in higher ed and spent the first part of our careers there. So it just has a soft spot in our heart for the transformation that happens and that unique time of life to really invest and pour into students is such a transformational thing. So I love your story. So thanks for sharing that. I wonder if we could
Absolutely.
dive into talking a little bit about higher ed. This has been a weird year. 2020 is a weird year for everything, but especially higher ed. What does the future look like? What are the trends that you're looking at and paying attention to?
When you look at this, I'll say pre-COVID and post-COVID. Pre-COVID, we all focus on major capital campaigns, right? Everybody's running a campaign, $1 billion this and that, focus on research and discovery and how to build the research enterprise and diversify the revenue stream, right? That was sort of everybody. I mean, we're in the middle of starting one. Every university is talking about all these things. But you are not hearing a lot of talk about how do we enhance our online learning infrastructure? How do we develop degrees of that cater to the future? I mean, that talk was starting. I recall when I was at the Harvard Graduate School of Education doing my executive ed program, we had a gentleman who wrote a book about the 60-year curriculum, Chris Deedy. And so he was talking about how do universities pivot from offering an English degree, for instance, to maybe creative writing. Okay, how do you move from a sort of functional education, I'm training a teacher, to I'm training an educator? That was beginning the talk was beginning to happen because, as you know, a lot of kids are opting not to go to college, and that's a problem. We need to have them because our economy needs that. So in comes COVID, and all of a sudden you got to go all online, and you realize, oh, our e-learning infrastructure is not sound. Or maybe parents are beginning to question why certain degrees, why should I spend $30,000 a year to put my kid through a school, and then they come out, they can't have a job. So these questions are coming up. So you got to think, well, maybe we're going to offer a lot of our degrees online at a reduced cost. Maybe we have to think about, we're thinking of building a dorm, a housing facility. Maybe that's not needed anymore. So the fundraising world in institutional advancement, we're thinking about these big institutional drivers, key economic thrusters that we're going to go with. And then COVID comes in and we hit a pause, and all of a sudden, now we got to think, we got to help the institution think of the future. And so for me, the trends I'm looking at, what I've seen is there's a lot more focus on need-based assistance for our students, especially for institutions that are serving first-generation, low-income students, and even the ones that have had the ability to go to school. All of a sudden, your parents are unemployed, and you're exhausting your reserves. Where I am right now, I think it's about 35. It was about up to 35% unemployment at one point, and so at that rate, the folks that can afford can't afford. So now, in the spirit of diversity and equity, ensuring equitable access to education, we have to identify funds to help students be able to afford to go to school. And then secondarily, not everybody has access to Wi-Fi and laptops and all the tools they need to learn. So now there's a focus also on assisting those students, and those tend to be the underserved populations, historically underserved minoritized groups that are at a disadvantage as compared to the well-to-do students. So I'm looking at that, and also the whole diversity, equity, and inclusion picture, right? We went through a social justice movement, and a lot of the things that we need to do as institutions involve money, involve raising money to provide access to certain programs that cater to those groups. We know that for students who come from low income and underserved populations, being on campus and participating in living and learning communities is helpful. So from a social justice perspective, I mean, following the events during the summer, it's been clear that as institutions, we need to address the needs of our students, and we need to ensure that our faculty ranks are diverse and representative of our student bodies. We need to ensure that we're investing money in scholarships to help minoritized populations. We need to ensure that our campuses are reflective of the communities we serve, and all that requires resources. So what I'm seeing now is, for the first time in my career, a real push by institutions, intentional push, to focus on fundraising in those particular areas that I've not seen in my entire career. And so, student access and equity is something, to summarize as, key trend that I'm looking at. And also to talk about diversity and inclusion efforts is another thing that I'm seeing. And also what I'm seeing is a lot of high net worth individuals, not just writing blank checks, being very strategic and thoughtful about the investment. So if I'm giving you $20 million, what are you doing with it? What are the outcomes? I want demonstrated outcomes. I mean, I think more and more you're going to see that funders requiring you to prove that you're worthy to receive, such gifts. I mean, I've worked with one gift where somebody could have given us $2 million up front. Let's say, no, I'm going to give you $250K a year. And at the end of each year, I want to see that you're actually doing something to help the students. If you're not, then I'm not going to give you the rest of the gift. And so that's what I see.
And you know what? I love that donors are going to that place. That you should. Donors should hold our feet to the fire in that way, because it keeps us with a true north, that we're actually sprinting toward. We want to honor them. We want them to re-up and give again. And I really appreciate this conversation around even just first generation students coming in from minority families. I was hearing a story the other day from a student who was applying for a top 10 senior position at a university, and he's writing about how he is the first student from his Hispanic family of 14. His dad is a roofer. He is the oldest child, and so therefore all of the money that the family pooled for the last 18 years is only going to his education. And he talks about in his essay the weight that he felt at pouring into his studies, at embracing every opportunity that came in, because it wasn't just about his future. He understood that this had a ripple effect in his family, and that he would be laying the groundwork for siblings that would not be able to go to college unless they had some degree of scholarship that would cover the entire thing. And so I am quite excited about seeing what you call an intentional focus on low income and scholarships for minority students, because that is going to diversify and make our environments in the higher ed space more inclusive. We're going to make sure that everybody has a seat at the table. Anybody who should and wants to pursue higher ed, we should be able to find a way in this rich country to be able to provide that. So really appreciate you bringing that up. And I really want to talk about the power of philanthropy in higher education. And we saw that over and over. And I think we all subscribe to the belief that philanthropy has a life-altering effect. But I wonder if you could kind of expound upon that idea and what you've seen with philanthropy and how it's been able to positively impact the spaces that you have been in and all of these various institutions.
Yeah, so I really have to before I go into that, I got to give credit to Mackenzie Scott and what she did towards the end of the year.
We love her
so much.
Mackenzie, please come on our show.
We'd love to talk about
Yeah,
you.
I mean, I out of nowhere, I mean, what she did demonstrated that when somebody who is being blessed with resources puts their mind into something, they can inspire others to give. I mean, you think about a school like Alcorn State University, small historically Black institution in Mississippi that serves, some of the most underserved people in the state of Mississippi, okay, receiving $10 million. That's more money than they've ever raised in the history of their university. And all of a sudden, now they got a chance to have a scholarship fund. They have a chance to enhance their programs, physical facilities, and things like that. So, I mean, you see time and time again how something like that inspires others to say, I can make a difference. I mean, I'm worth $20 billion. $1 billion can help all these kids, and we can move our country faster towards an equitable situation where everybody has access to transform the lives of their students. So, from my perspective, I can tell you, at every university that I've served, you know, you see that power. I'll go back to when I was at the University of Arizona. You know, we had a corporation in aerospace that started a scholars program to recruit engineers from underrepresented populations. Okay, so they'll provide a full scholarship from the time you're a sophomore all the way, like all your education is covered. And you know what was so amazing about that is you had all these kids that are coming into school, and they cannot afford, you know, to do the lab work that you need to do in engineering because it takes a lot of time and have to work. Now they don't have to work. They just got to do the work that they need to. They had an internship with that. And I fast forward, that was, you know, in the early, like 2012-ish, 14. Today, all those students are in mid to senior level engineering roles in that corporation, okay? And one of the students that I remember came from, you know, down in close to Nogales, Arizona, on the Mexican border. And he was the first person in his family to go past high school. Dana Cordova was his name. I still remember him. And Dana, you know, got this scholarship from Northrop Grumman and was able to ride that. And it helped him achieve his dream. And now only did he graduate with a bachelor's degree, but he graduated with, you know, with distinction and is now in a senior engineering role. And so first person in the family to go past high school, to get a college degree, and they're now in a position where the future of their family is going to go a different direction. I mean, you know, I've
That's
seen it.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and you know, I've seen it in terms of facility enhancements. I mean, you know, I remember when I was at the University of Missouri during our campaign, we had somebody who was concerned about ensuring our population students have an understanding of a constitutional democracy. What does democracy mean? And he felt that, you know, we were not exposing students to that. So gives us $25 million. All of a sudden, we have an Institute for Constitutional Democracy. So philanthropy in higher education is truly transformative. I mean, you cannot run a higher education institution just by depending on, you know, state appropriation and what have you. I mean, you know, in many institutions, 6% of your operating budget comes from the state. Everything else is research and is philanthropy. When you go to liberal arts colleges, four-year colleges, they don't have research, right? So philanthropy is the power that keeps that engine going.
I mean, you've just given so many examples of why I think we fall in love with higher ed. I mean, it is just a transformational season of life. I think of a campaign that UT Austin ran many years ago called "What Starts Here Changes the World." And it's so true. It's like families, generations are changed, programs infuse change throughout our entire democracy.
Poverty cycles broken. I mean, it's so inspiring.
It's really, really inspiring. But I'd love to kind of shift topics because you are a torchbearer in just this idea of bringing more inclusivity, more diversity into our industry, which it sorely needs it.
Yep.
So I'd love for you to kind of share a little bit about the pledge that you've personally signed alongside some other folks that we know, including Yolanda F. Johnson. She's one of our friends out in Manhattan. But I know y'all have locked arms to do something real tangible in this space, and I'd love you to share that with our listeners and kind of give us the story behind it.
Yeah, so, you know, we've been having these conversations as part of an organization called African-American Development Officers Network, which initially started as a networking group for African-American professionals in philanthropy, but yet then it morphed into all-inclusive underrepresented groups. And so we've always talked about, you know, diversity issues and whatnot, but, you know, the murder of George Floyd was truly a point of inflection. I mean, we just got down to a point where, you know, as professionals in our field, in prior times, we didn't feel that we had the freedom to speak out our mind because maybe there may be repercussions, you know, professionally. And so at that point, I recall we had an emergency meeting, you know, it's sort of like an emergency powwow just as a forum for us to talk and share the feelings that are going through our minds during that period, because it was a very traumatizing and trying period because we've seen this happen every time and time and time again. What is America going to do about it? But the difference was you have 300 million plus people sitting at home and watching it, and all of a sudden saying, wow, this is outrageous. And so from a higher education perspective, we said, well, enough of statements about how we are in solidarity with our African-American faculty, staff, blah, 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 blah. And then 6 months, we forget about it. We want to see tangible actions. And so we got together and we had a conversation, and myself and a number of colleagues said, well, we need to put together a pledge as a starting point to inspire our field in institutional advancement to really examine their sort of commitment to diversity. By that, I mean, if you look at your institution, most of your leadership is not minoritized, right? And if you look at your ranks in institutional advancement, there's less than 5% or so of people who carry the title of vice president or associate vice president are of color. Now, is that because we don't have the talent pool? No, we do. But it's because the processes in which we go through to recruit and retain folks are often tend to skew towards those of the dominant population. And so we know that. We've experienced that. So we thought of the NFL's Rooney Rule, and Major League Baseball has a similar thing. And we said it's time that we have something that challenges our field to examine its talent management and acquisition practices and the entire core values and mission of each institutional advancement organization. And so we wanted to challenge our field, and we said enough is enough. This is not just about us. It's not us saying, well, I haven't been a vice president yet, so I want to create a clear path. No, what we're saying is examine the culture of your organization. Are you treating everybody the same? Are you providing the same opportunities? Oftentimes you hear, during institutions as they're conducting searches, for instance, they go through certain firms, certain search job boards where the individuals they recruit are often not minorities. So examine that process. How are you sourcing? And how are you creating an environment where people of minoritized groups can thrive? That, I mean, it's not, you don't have to be, say, in in Atlanta, a very diverse city for a person of color to feel welcome. You can be in Bozeman, Montana, but as long as the culture and the core values of the organization are inclusive, people will want to come and work for you. Don't just assume just because you're in a certain space, it will be uncomfortable for underrepresented groups to be part of. So that's what we wanted to address, because at the end of the day, in our profession, it's about representation in the leadership and ranks of the organization. Our alumni are diverse. They want to see diverse faces. They're saying that. And so we wanted to use that pledge to inspire other organizations, and outside of higher education, also, as well as higher education. We wanted to get Case and others to join with us and say, you know what, if you're going to be part of institutional advancement, you have to live by these values. We challenge you. We want to see not just you just hire 10 people of color, but we want to see how you're retaining those folks. Okay, are you retaining them? Are you providing opportunities for them to move forward? And so that was what drove us to say change has to happen. We feel that we have experienced challenges, because of who we are, throughout our careers. So we want to ensure that the future generations don't have to go through that. We want to ensure that the future of philanthropy in higher education will be as diverse as possible, because we know we have the talent there. We know they're great people. I've met so many of them, of all ethnic groups and minoritized groups that are really, really amazing professionals that are mission driven. But we just want to give them a seat at the table. That's all. We just ask them, just give me a chance to show what I can do, and that's what we try to do with that.
I love this topic so much, as you knew that I would, John. And I just want to completely lift you and the team up for coming up with this concept and asking what I think are the hard questions. It's not enough to just, again, to your point, put out our statements, slap a Black Lives Matter logo on our websites. It's simply not enough, especially when, only 11% of professionals who are in higher education advancement are diverse. And so I'm curious about your progress and where people can go to sign up. How many people have you had sign up, and what is your goal, and how can we help you?
So, our goal has been to work with national organizations such as the Council for Advancement and Support of Education, and the AFP, Associated Fundraising Professional, and others, to get them to adapt this pledge and to get them to be part of it. Because here's the deal: there are thousands of institutions of higher learning that are part of CASE. So if we, or these national organizations, so if we can get those national organizations to endorse this, then it'll have a ripple effect on all the other organizations. And you're beginning to see many universities adapt that. I mean, a certain university in the Midwest, I would say, they have an associate vice president for diversity, equity, and inclusion within advancement. That's how serious they're taking it. Every step of, say, onboarding, right? When they're interviewing candidates, they cast a wide net of to recruit as diverse of a pool as possible. And in every step of the way, when they talk about the language they use, when they talk about screening questions, so you no longer have these questions about, John is not a cultural fit. I mean, what do you define by that? Because typically, when you say that, people like myself are usually cast in a certain light, because most places I go to, I'm a minority, right? So that's that. And but I was really pleased to see that. So our goal has been, let's get national organizations, okay, to endorse what we're trying to do and adapt it. And so how individuals can participate is simply by looking at the blueprint that we have and going back to the institution and saying, okay, we are part of this. We want to sign up. They can reach out to myself and my colleagues, Angelique Grant, who's part of this, say, okay, we want to be part of this. And we are going to look internally to develop a program to build a pipeline within our institutions. A lot of places have internship programs, but those internship programs don't intentionally ask for underrepresented kids to be a priority. And I argue that if you want to change the narrative, if you want to really be intentional, okay, start an internship program at an institution and ensure that at least half of the kids that come in are underrepresented kids, and have them spend 3 years interning in different parts of your operation, from annual giving, major gifts, principal gifts, so they get that exposure. And at the end of the day, you have development officer openings when they're graduating. Boom, you have your development officer right there. You can recruit, or they may go to a different university. That's fine. Think of if every institution did that, we will have so many folks of from underrepresented groups that are part of our profession. And in 10 years, we'll be in a different spot. So those are the things that I really have been imploring folks to do. It's look at what we're talking about. Figure out how you can incorporate that within your institution. You have to make it happen. And by that, I mean, it's not just about recruiting folks in. It's about creating programs within your institution where the entire team values diversity. What are your core values? Okay. We talk about our core values as we respect everybody equally. We provide equal opportunity for people to be able to achieve their goals. And we don't tolerate a culture that's not inclusive. And guess what? You're signing up for that. If you're coming to our organization, I don't care where you come from, what your background is, that's what we believe in. So we want to create an environment where somebody who's LGBTQI can come and be part of our family and feel just as welcome. Okay. And so, examine your core values. What are those core values? And ensure that as you're onboarding people, that advises everything that you do. And within your team, promote the idea of, cultural inclusivity. And that's what I mean by make it happen, because that's when you create a place where, a person from an underrepresented group will feel comfortable being part of. And also, it's not just about the underrepresented group. The flip side of it is our colleagues from who are not minoritized too. I mean, this benefits everybody else. We all know a diverse environment is a rich environment to work in that benefits everybody. So it's critical to look at this as not just say, oh, that's their problem. This is institutional.
And the thing I love about what you're saying is the way that you're plugging in is not from the top down, which would be the wrong way to plug in my opinion. You are plugging in at every level, from mentorships to internships to core values to hiring practice to retention. I mean, and I think that is how the long game is played. And that is how major cultures shift, is because it's systemic in every part of our business. We cannot just put a stamp on it. We can't just sign something. It's got to be integral in every part. So I think that was almost a mini masterclass for everybody that's listening about different avenues that you can pursue in your foundation or within your shop about how to be looking at a DEI mindset. And again, we talk about this all the time. People are probably drinking at home. Abundance mindset. If you are someone that believes that we all have enough and that we want everybody to have enough, then these are the tactics and the strategies that you should be employing. And I just commend you for it. Bravo.
And I also just hear this thread of be intentional. It's not just going to happen. Like, you can't just check the box. Like, you as leaders have to lean into this and be very intentional to establish that as your goals, so you can actually have that as part of your organizational fabric. So
fantastic.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, there are institutions where leaders are evaluated based on how they are living DEI. And when I look at your team, okay, what are you doing? Are you fostering an environment that's inclusive? And if you're not, that can make a difference between how you're rated for your leadership. And I think for me, that's brilliant, because we have to come at this being very authentic. We can't, enough of being, not being uncomfortable. I think being uncomfortable is a good thing, because being uncomfortable means you're learning and you're seeing that what you're doing may not be right at that time. So how do we become different? And that's what I said when George Floyd got murdered, and we were going through those emotions. And I said, I don't care what, if this is going to make me, not a candidate for certain opportunities, but this issue is bigger than me. It's bigger than any one of us. It's about our country and our profession and what our institutions demand of us. If we want to create an institution that we can all be proud of, then we need to grab the bull by the horns and say, as of 2021, it's unacceptable for our field to look the way it does, because it's not right. So we are going to
preach. We're here. Yes.
I mean, and it's not just folks of color underrepresented. I mean, it's women. I mean, I have conversations with my female colleagues, and so imagine being a female, African-American female. You have two challenges there according to the current norms, and there's so many talented people that often get overlooked because they fall in that category. And this is what, 2021? Come on. We can't continue that way. So that's why I'm so passionate about doing this, and not just me. I mean, I don't want to take credit for doing that. There is I can think of at least 100 of my colleagues who believe the same thing, and we're all banding together. So you know what? From the positions we're in, we're going to use our position of authority that we've been blessed with to ensure that we pave the way for others.
Well, Kim, thank you so much. I mean, this has been fantastic, and we will certainly link up the blueprint and the pledge in the show notes. So I'd encourage everybody listening to go and read through that and be self-reflective of that, of how can you adopt that in whichever industry you're in, or push the envelope forward for your sphere of influence. Kim, we ask all of our guests one good thing, and I've been keeping a tally. You've given us a ton of good things today, but they don't count yet, because I want your one good thing. So that could be your secret for success, a life hack, give us something to ponder for the day.
So my one good thing is, something similar to what Simon Sinek always talk about. People make great organizations. Organizations don't make people. To build a great organization, you have to establish a strong mission and vision that drives people to success. And so if you focus on people, I always say that, if I was to leave today and somebody said, what was your, as you look back in your career, what was your great accomplishment? I say is the fact that I was able to find great people who are mission driven about philanthropy and higher education. And they came in and contributed to the success of our institutions. And I was able to provide them opportunities to achieve their career goals. I look at all the people that I've been fortunate to recruit, and I get tickled when I see them. Their director here, their senior director there, they're applying for an associate vice president somewhere, and they are, leading the industry. I think there's no greater legacy than that. And if our industry was to focus on that, focus on people, okay? You focus on people, culture, and mission and values, you will build a very strong organization and results will happen.
I love that so much, and I really appreciate you saying that. And I hope I can piggyback. I occasionally do this. One more good thing, because you said something in the first 10 minutes that's been haunting me the entire conversation. And you were saying that you and many of your colleagues in the minority community have not felt that they can speak up in our industry. And so my one good challenge to everyone listening is, if you are a person of privilege, if you are someone who is not a minority, I encourage you to find someone within your organization, within your circles, within your affiliations or professional organizations. Go talk to them and ask them if they feel that way. And if they give them a voice to kind of allow them to talk about that, and see how you can be a partner to them. See how you can remove some of those barriers that perhaps we don't even see. And I think that is another way that people can feel seen and feel heard. And then again, you're seeing a dynamic of people coming together and uniting around this. And we can see that this is not just an issue for certain subsets of people. This is an issue that affects all of us. So I'm sorry, tagging on there. One more thing, Kim. Can you tell our listeners?
I'm all yours.
Come on over. Can you tell our listeners how they can connect with you, whether that's with you in the advancement office at UNLV or just you on LinkedIn or Instagram? Where are you at?
I'm all over, but my preferred channel is LinkedIn. So LinkedIn at Kim Nyoni. And I'm open to connect with any like-minded people that are interested in the world of advancement. And, truly, it's beyond diversity, equity, and inclusion. I spent my entire career at University of Advancement. I'm very passionate about how do we best serve our institutions. And moving forward, it's going to be a challenging landscape for a lot of institutions, especially non-research institutions. So we have an opportunity here to rethink how we can do business. And it's through the collective wisdom of folks in our field that we can help one another in bouncing ideas that can move institutions forward, because higher education is absolutely critical in our country, as we all know. I mean, American higher education is by far the best in the world, and we want to keep it that way. We want to make it inclusive. We want to make it welcoming for all. And so I welcome the opportunity to connect with anybody who is of like mind, and let's continue to have this conversation.
Sharing is caring. Better together.
Absolutely. Kim, it's been awesome talking with you today. Thank you so much for what you're doing.